All right, perfect. This meeting is being held on January 18th, 2024, and the time is 9:06. This meeting is being held or occurring at the Department of Consumer Affairs main hearing room located at 1625 North Market Boulevard, Sacramento, California, 95834. Today's meeting will be conducted using the following guidelines. All participants will mute their microphone or phone during each presentation of the agenda topic. Board members who wish to provide additional comments should select the raise hand feature next to their name. This will alert the host and the chair that you have additional comments. At the conclusion of the discussion from board members, I will ask for public comment. At the conclusion of the discussion period, I will call for a vote if necessary or move to the next agenda item. All in attendance should keep their comments specific to the agenda item being discussed. An opportunity for public comment for items not on the agenda will be provided. Please be advised that during this comment period, the board cannot engage in discussions or take action on any matter that is raised except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. And Michael, you had some stuff to say about
Yes, good morning, Mr. President, members. Michael Knotes, legal counsel. There have been some changes since January 1st to the provisions of the Open Meetings Act. One of the features that we had during the pandemic was the ability to have fully virtual meetings. That the legislature essentially sunsetted that authority and replaced it with the ability to do a hybrid meeting, essentially. This is a feature of SB 544 and is found in Government Code Section 11123.2. The catch is that we have to have a quorum in the room. So individuals attending via WebEx or remotely do not count towards quorum, but they can attend and participate. There are a couple provisions that, and at this point, only applies to member Damian. But there are a couple things that members attending remotely have to keep in mind. If there are individuals in the room who are 18 years or older, the member must disclose that, but only if they're in the immediate room with them. And they have to disclose that and the general nature of the member's relationship with any such individuals. So children are fine. If you have another adult with you in the room, you need to let us know and what the relationship is there. The other is that the procedure in the Open Meetings Act to have a meeting like this requires the members attending remotely to appear on camera. So we'll need to keep our camera on, and there's an exception if there are technological problems, including but not limited to internet connectivity problems. And if you're having those, you can turn off your camera, but you'll have to let us know that that's the reason. Beyond that, it's a pretty typical meeting. And if we have questions as we go along, happy to entertain those, and I'll turn it back over to our board president.
All right, well, thank you. We will move on to item number 2 on the agenda, which is establishment of a quorum. We will now establish a quorum. Machiko, will you call the roll?
Corey Damian.
Present.
Cyrus Buhari.
Present.
Elizabeth Jensen. Michael Kim. Michael Luzak.
Present.
Andrew Marino.
Present.
Hamesh Patel.
Present.
Denise Pines.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, which is the reading of the board's mission statement. And I'll ask Executive Director Calderon.
Thank you, Dr. Bahari. The mission of the board is to protect the public by requiring competency, accountability, and integrity in the safe practice of medicine by osteopathic physicians and surgeons.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, meeting and public comment procedures. Agenda item number 4, public comment on items not on the agenda. Again, during the meeting today, comment is welcome on any agenda item as the item is taken up by the board. Under the Open Meetings Act, the board may not take any action on issues raised by public comment that are not on the agenda other than to decide whether to schedule that issue for a future meeting. In order to allow the board sufficient time to conduct its scheduled business, the board will limit the time given to each person to 2 minutes. It's not necessary to repeat statements or views of a previous speaker. It's sufficient to state that you agree. As a reminder, please don't disclose details of an active enforcement case or licensing matter as they may compromise the board's ability to hear this case later. The board appreciates your cooperation and assistance in meeting its legal mandate. At this time, are there any public comments from members of the public in the room for items not on the agenda? I don't see any comments from people in the room. Moderator, is there
Thank you.
anyone requesting public comment online?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. Yes, there are. So if any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 4, you can raise your hand or type comment using the Q&A feature in the bottom lower corner of your screen. We are displaying instructions, and we already have several requests for comment. The first from an attendee by the name of Marta Sandra's Corin. And Marta, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go, you're unmuted. So Marta, you are unmuted. Can you hear us? No, we can't hear you, Marta. So what I'll do is I'll go to the next person and maybe you can work on your audio. All right. So Michelle Montserrat Ramos, you should be able to unmute yourself. And Michelle, you are unmuted.
Good morning. I am Michelle Montserrat Ramos, and I am with Consumer Watchdog. You have a new board member here, and it's been a while since I've introduced myself and let you know why my team and I have dedicated our time to your meetings. I've been a state and national patient advocate for the past 18 years. I work with Consumer Watchdog, where I work on policy change and legislation to protect consumers while also helping families navigate the regulatory board complaint process. Like my team, I also lost a loved one to medical negligence, actually 2 family members. I know what it feels like to come before this board and feel like you have not been heard and feel like you have no intention of meeting your mission, which is to protect us, the public. You have been appointed to this board and accepted this appointment. You have taken an oath to meet this mission, and we expect, especially from the public board members, to take on some of these issues the public brings to your attention. Please understand, we are not going anywhere. We will not give up and go away. We will continue to come before this board. You state in your strategic plan that your success depends on an ever-evolving relationship with all of the stakeholders. Well, whether you want to see it this way, we are stakeholders in this process. You need to start treating the public like stakeholders. You can work with us or continue to work without us, but either way, we will fix these issues we present to you once again today. I know that committee staff feels that we only address the medical board, but that is obviously not true. The medical board has accepted the public as stakeholders, and we have a working relationship with them and hope to build one with you as well. Thank you.
All right, and we'll go back to Marta and see if she's fixed her audio issues. Marta, would you like to try unmuting? Okay, Marta, you are showing as unmuted. But if you're talking, we cannot hear you. So Marta, I'm going to recommend that you call in for your audio. You can go up to the top of your screen where it says audio and video, and there's a call in option. So you can use your phone. If you click on the audio and video, it'll give you the phone number to call and walk you through it. So just go to audio and video at the top of your screen and select to call in for your audio. So if I could have the co-moderator display the slide number 40, it has directions for calling in for your audio. So slide number 40. So Marta, if you're able to see the screen, it shows the steps you need to take. So when you select the call-in option, it will provide you with a number. So, Mr. Board President, we don't have any more requests for comment. I don't know if we want to wait on this attendee to fix their audio or what you would like to do.
This is Michael Canos, Board Legal Counsel. I think we can perhaps allow some public comment on items on the agenda later in the meeting.
Okay.
If that's an issue. Otherwise, to the member of the public, you can always submit comments in writing to the board.
Okay,
They'll be part of the record.
I'm on the line now.
Oh, here we
I'm on
go.
the line.
great. Thank
Hi.
you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience. I haven't used WebEx in a while. I apologize for that. My name is Marta Sanders Corwin, and I attended medical school at Toro College of Osteopathic Medicine from 2013 to 2017. And I've petitioned with the Osteopathic Board, I believe twice, for time extension on my standardized testing. I've received time extension throughout my entire education, from middle school to high school, even medical school, and now in business school as well on my testing, due to a diagnosis of ADHD. But because I'm an immigrant from Honduras and I wasn't diagnosed before the age of 12, it kind of put me out of the scope of what legally the board considers being diagnosed in a timely fashion. So I've received letters stating that that's one of the reasons why the time extension was denied. I've been working towards obtaining my license since 2017 by petitioning the board to reconsider my case. And I'm just attending this meeting in hopes that you might reconsider that today.
All right, this is the moderator, and that's the last of the requests for public comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Since we have no other comment, we'll move on. Number 5, the President's report. I don't have much to report for today. We'll move forward. Item number 6, the Executive Director's report, and I'll pass to Executive Director Calderon.
Good morning, members of the board, staff, and members of the public. Hope you all had a wonderful time with your families this past holiday season. and were able to make wonderful memories with all of your loved ones. I am here today to provide you with my first executive report of 2024. This report is intended to provide the members of the Osteopathic Medical Board of California with an update on personnel and other administrative functions and projects occurring at the OMBC. There is no action needed at this time. Personnel. In terms of personnel, there are quite a few updates to give to you today. But before we get started, I would like to share some special news with you. Gabriela's baby Natalia, has made her appearance to the world. Baby Natalia was born on December 14th, and both baby and mommy are healthy and doing extremely well. As much as we are eager to have Gabby return to our office, we are very lucky to have such amazing staff, particularly one staff member who has stepped up in to help with her caseload in her absence. So I would like to take this time to publicly thank Ms. Dina Rupret, who is not only handling our PTLs at the moment, but also Gabby's caseload. Okay, so let's get started with our office personnel. In terms of our legal counsel, I think this is the third time of having to report that our counsel has been reassigned. I am hopeful that this will be the last time in a very long time. The board was first informed by the Department of Consumer Affairs that it would be receiving a new counsel in December of last year. And as mentioned, there has been 3 reassignments since then. I would like to once again thank Mr. Michael Connotes, who is here today, standing by to pass the baton, for such an amazing help and sticking around during all of these changes. This meeting will be Michael's last official meeting with us. So again, thank you so much, Michael, for everything that you have done for our members, the OMBC staff, and personally, all of your help that you lent me during my transition. With that said, the board would like to welcome Mr. Yupin Lin as our newest counsel. And as mentioned, we hope to have Mr. Lin for a very long time. Mr. Lin previously worked as deputy attorney at Caltrans and joined DCA in October 2023. And in November, he joined our OMBC family. Please join me in thanking Mr. Connotes for his many years of service with the OMBC and show Mr. Lin a warm welcome. In terms of office staff, the board is happy to announce that as of today, we have no vacancies. We hired a staff member earlier this month and just hired our receptionist this past week. We are also happy to announce 2 internal promotions and Machiko's reclass and redirect to make her position officially permanent. I will start off with Ms. Machiko's old position. As you know, she was our administrative analyst for a couple of years. This position has been reclassed and redirected to make Machiko's current position as staff services manager over the licensing program permanent. As you are all aware, Ms. Chong was hired as the board's licensing program in April of 2023 on a limited term basis. Ms. Chong assumed her responsibilities as our licensing program manager and has proven to be a huge success to this board. And for that reason, we took the initiative to find a way to make her position permanent as soon as possible. All of Ms. Chong's old duties will be absorbed by the entire management team. The second set of updates are a direct result of Ms. Sabrina Roel's retirement. Ms. Mia Quinn, who's in the audience, was our management services technician over the enforcement and admin units, was promoted into Ms. Roel's vacated position as staff services analyst in our licensing program. And Ms. Andrea Harmon, who was the board's receptionist, has been promoted into Mia's prior position. The next update that I have for you today is that Ms. Andrea Jeremiah, who was briefly the board's probation monitor, left state service early November. The board conducted interviews to backfill her position and offered the position to Mr. Ralph Correa, who is in the audience this morning. Ralph, if you don't mind giving us a little wave so that our members can see who you are. I would like to acknowledge that Mr. Correa comes to the board with over 20 years of law enforcement experience and as a retired police officer. Having worked for the Medical Board of California's probation unit for nearly 4 years, he comes with a great deal of knowledge and experience. He requires no training and, as a matter of fact, has been helping me learn more about probation for the past 3 weeks. He also joins us right in time as we are revising our disciplinary guidelines. He has been instrumental already in suggesting and pointing out what we need to make our guidelines stronger and more enforceable, which in turn will provide greater consumer protection. I am looking forward to working with Ralph and establishing a very strong probation program very soon. As mentioned before, we hired our receptionist just last week. Mr. Sanjay Naresh will be joining the OMBC family as our newest receptionist Monday morning. Mr. Naresh comes with many years of private sector experience, but most significantly worked for UC Davis for 7 years as a hospital assistant. Please join me in congratulating everyone into their new roles and welcoming Mr. Correa and Mr. Naresh to our family. In terms of office operations for telework, the board continues to manage on an ongoing telework schedule for office staff. Board staff continues to be on a 3-day in-office and 2-day at-home schedule. This continues to be effective and productive for office operations, and there are no immediate concerns for any changes at this time. To provide an update on our lease agreement, since providing you all with the board materials a couple of weeks ago, I do have a recent update to give on this topic. We just finalized the paperwork this week on our lease. Just to provide some historical content, we started the process of renewing our lease when Naturopathic vacated our office in January of last year. The board is requesting some minor office improvements, such as turning the board's current copy room into another manager's office, moving some copy machines over to our file rooms, adding insulation to the walls to help reduce noise, and most importantly, adding key card access to our door so our staff no longer have to utilize actual keys to open doors and close doors behind them. This will not only provide greater efficiency to get in and out of our office, but also provide greater security. It is important to note that despite all of these minor improvements, our rent will be going down nearly $800 a month, which is a cost savings to the board. In terms of our strategic plan, we met in September to conduct our 2024-2028 strategic planning session. The DCA Solid team met with board members, leadership, and completed our session. Later today, the members will get an opportunity to vote on adopting this plan. For technology, Breeze updates, the board continues to be very active in working with our Breeze team to make process improvements for board programs. Management and staff continue to meet with DCA's Breeze team daily and discuss progress on all of our individualized projects for each unit. And as usual, we will provide these updates in our program reports later today. Social media accounts. The board continues to utilize these social media accounts frequently to post informational material for both our consumers and our licensees. The board is advertising its board meetings through this venue, outreach events, and notifying our consumers and licensees of any operational changes such as going live on Breeze with our physician and surgeon application most recently, any cures updates, and expedited licensure pathways. In terms of our board website, the board is happy to announce that we went live with our new template on November 1st. So far, the board has received great feedback and plans to do a better job at maintaining the current content and keeping it organized and running effectively and smoothly for all of our stakeholders. For communication, the executive director had calls and email exchange with board president, Dr. Cyrus Bahari, to discuss pending and ongoing projects and meeting agendas. The executive director continues to meet periodically with the board's attorney general liaison, Ms. Karen Lynn Westfall, and also communicates frequently with Ms. Gloria Castro, senior assistant attorney general. Executive Director continues to meet monthly with Melissa Dawes, the supervising investigator over the Health and Quality Investigation Unit, to discuss progress on pending investigations. Board staff participated in meetings with other local, state, and national organizations in discussing and deciding regulatory measures common to OMBC and others. These organizations include, but were not limited to, the Office of Attorney Generals, Department of Justice, DCA, other healing board arts, such as Medical Board of California, Physician Assistant Board, and the Board of Pharmacy, the California Department of Public Health, Department of Healthcare Services, the Federation of State Medical Board, the National Board of Osteopathic Medical Examiners, the Osteopathic Physicians and Surgeons of California, and Maximus. In terms of outreach, in addition to completing our new website, the other major project completed this year is the addition of our very first issue of the board's newsletter titled Osteoscope. This first issue is our winter 2023 newsletter, which is published on our website and can be located under our Forms and Publications tab. We are also having hard copies for distribution. The board plans to share this newsletter through our listserv, share it with our board members, our schools, the associations, FSMB, and other stakeholders. I do want to point out that FSMB shared the news of our newsletter in their last edition themselves, so thank you to FSMB. As mentioned before, the plan is to publish a new issue at least twice a year. However, if we get enough content to share and eventually have a dedicated staff for our outreach, we would like to publish this quarterly. The board is also happy to announce that it completed its very first school presentation in November. The board was invited to join Dr. Wagner and Dr. Whitlow and help host a professional identity seminar at Touro University. I have to say that it was such an amazing experience. Students were extremely engaged and had lots of great questions about the enforcement process. They were walked through the entire process and the do's and don'ts and how to stay out of trouble with the board. We look forward to returning to Touro and getting invited to do similar presentations at other schools in the near future. In terms of conferences, the board attended the Osteopathic Physicians and Surgeons of California CME by the Bay in October 5th. The conference held in Monterey, California. We ran a booth and provided a presentation of board updates. There were initial plans to attend a few of these conferences this year. However, as you may have already heard, we have a budget issue here in California, and those are on hold at this time. At this time, this does conclude my very first report for 2024. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Calderon. Is there any discussion from members of the public that are currently in the room? Oh, sorry, by the board. Board members, any discussion first?
Mr. President, before we go to board discussion, just want to acknowledge that Dr. Jensen is now in attendance, so we can update the role for that. Dr. Jensen, very briefly, there have been some changes in law in the manner in which we can conduct meetings electronically. The three main points are that only the members in the room count towards quorum. Members attending remotely need to keep their video on unless their internet fails, and then we need you to let us know if that's the case. And second, if there is an individual in the room with you who is over 18 years of age, you need to disclose that that person's there and the general nature of your relationship with this person. So kids don't count. Sorry for the long spiel, but we have some new changes here that we all have to sort of get to know. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay, any discussion by members of the board on the executive director's report?
Yes, I'd like to make a couple comments. One, I want to thank Erica for doing such an amazing job within a short period of time, a full year of just how we've seen this board transform really from where it was when I first came on board. And I want to congratulate also the communication process that you've gone through to improve the website, to make it more user-friendly. And the newsletter is amazing. I've read the whole, read the whole thing. I think it's really great. And I think we all need to be advocates for our profession so that more and more people really understand the value of our doctors. Thank you.
Michael Luzak, most recent appointee to the board. I'd also like to second my colleagues' comments. Thank you so much, Ms. Calderon, for helping me become oriented to the board, answering my countless questions, and being patient with the steep learning curve that I've had getting on board with this this board. So thank you so very much.
Any other comments from board members? No, we'll move on. Any comments from members of the public in the room on the executive director's report? Seeing none, moderator, is there anyone requesting to public comment online?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 6, the executive director's report, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. If you've called in, you can press *3 to raise your hand. And I see we already have some people with hands raised. Kimberly Turbin, you should be able to unmute. There you go. And Kimberly, you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Turbin. I am from Los Angeles. I'm also a volunteer with Consumer Watchdog. We have some concerns with how behind this board is in terms of with the public regarding the brief update. We are calling on this board to adopt the consumer complaint notification system that the medical board is working on. Californians that submit complaints to this board need to know the status of their complaints, where their complaints are in the enforcement process. The easiest way to accomplish this is to adopt the medical board's consumer complaint notification system. As for social media, there is plenty of information for doctors, but no information for the public. This needs to change. The subjects are simply to put together. How to file a consumer complaint, how to check your physician's profile, and any disciplinary action like that. Also, public outreach needs to be conducted. If you can find funding to attend and run a booth at a physician's conference, then you could do some public outreach. Your mission is to protect the public. You need to take some actions to show the legislator and the public that you are attempting to do that. Thank you very much.
All right, the next comment is from Maria Ibarra Navarrete. And just a reminder, the comments are for the executive director's report. And Maria, you should be able to unmute yourself. All right.
Good morning. I am Maria Ibarra Navarrete. I'm from San Jose, and I am a volunteer with Consumer Watchdog. I submitted my brother's death complaint to this board. I can't explain to you how devastating it is to present every aspect of your loved one's lack of care and death and what it takes to do that. It takes everything out of us, but we do submit these complaints with faith that this board will make a real effort to analyze these complaints and refer them to the investigation. Yet, I read in your report that you are promoting staff with no experience in enforcement practices and managing complaints. How long is this learning curve going to be for these inexperienced staff? And what impact is this going to have on the consumer's complaints? With technology and working with staff to make processes improvements with Breezy program, the best improvement you can make would be to incorporate the consumer complaint notification system that the medical board is working on right now and implementing. I know this would have helped me when I was waiting for my complaint to go through the process. My complaint sat waiting for a medical consultant review for an astronomical amount of time. The complaint notification system not only keeps the public informed, but it will be a notification for staff to take other actions to move the complaint through the process when it is sitting inactive for a long period of time. It is very important to use your social media accounts to communicate not only to physicians but also to the public. You could announce changes to your website. You could announce disciplinary actions. You could announce that the public can submit consumer complaints and how to do that. It is incredibly disappointing to see you dismiss
15 seconds.
especially when the list of your accomplishments in conducting outreach to physicians and medical students, if you can find funding to participate in the Osteo medical conferences. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
All right. The next comment is from Michelle Montserrat Ramos. And Michelle, you should be able to unmute.
I am Michelle Montserrat Ramos, and I'm with Consumer Watchdog. We have concerns with how this board is communicating or not communicating with the public. In your meeting materials, you mentioned the need to work on Breeze updates when the medical board is implementing a consumer complaint notification system that will not only allow the public to have access to where their complaint is in the enforcement process, but it will also allow a means for the public to communicate with staff. We're calling on you to implement the same complaint notification tracking system. You love to follow what the medical board does, but seem to not do so when the medical board is implementing consumer protections. You are not communicating with the public through your social media accounts. There is plenty of information for physicians, but no information for the public. If you don't know how to communicate with the public, then just ask us for assistance. It's really simple. How do you file a consumer complaint? How do you look up your physician's background? We want to hear from you. Send your comments to us and add an email address. Remember, we are your stakeholders. You need to communicate with the public as well. Public outreach needs to be conducted. We have seen a notation that due to funding, you won't be doing public outreach, yet you've somehow found funding to visit DO schools and attend osteopathic conferences where you ran a booth. If you can do that, then you can conduct outreach to the public. Remember, your mission is to protect the public. You need to take some actions to show the legislature and the public that you're attempting to do that. Thank you.
All right. This is a moderator, and that's the end of public comment from WebEx. I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to public comment? Seeing no one, thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 7, which is Intergovernmental Relations Reports and Administrative Services update. We'll first have the DCA update with Judy Pucciarelli, the Board and Bureau Relations with the DCA.
Good morning. My name is Judy Bucciarelli, and I'm from the DCA Board and Bureau Relations. Okay, to begin my report today, I'd like to begin with the diversity, equity, and inclusion update. The DEI Steering Committee held its quarterly meeting on December 15th, 2023. The committee reviewed a draft DEI intranet webpage that is currently being developed. It re-elected its chairperson and vice chairperson for 2024 and discussed DEI training as it remains a committee priority. Once operational, the DEI intranet page will provide all DCA employees with information and resources, including DEI hiring principles, which will serve as a guide for those involved in the hiring process. The DEI Steering Committee would like to continue to learn about and showcase the DEI activities of DCA's boards and bureaus. If your board has DEI efforts to share, please send them to DCA Board and Bureau Relations. DCA continues to support the boards and bureaus in expanding culturally competent communications and promoting the importance of meeting the needs of all California consumers, licensees, and applicants. The latest issue of DCA's Consumer Connection magazine includes articles with information important to consumers, including a feature cover story translated into 3 languages to further reach of this information. The magazine is available on the DCA homepage, and printed copies of the magazine are also available. If you'd like printed copies, please email your request to consumerconnection@dca.ca.gov. Next, I have an update regarding the current year expenditure freeze. The Department of Finance issued a budget letter that directs all agencies and departments under the direct authority of the governor to take immediate action to reduce current year expenditures. Given the fiscal outlook, the state of California anticipates a significant general fund budget deficit in fiscal years 23-24 and 24-25, which will require all state entities to take immediate measures to ensure more prudent spending. Except for time-sensitive, emergency-related, mission-critical, or information security needs, immediate actions include the cancellation of all non-essential travel, such as participation in seminars, conferences, and training, both in-state and out-of-state. Additionally, programs shall reevaluate expenses related to current IT projects. Board should review all spending and determine where savings can be realized. In addition, it is important that boards, when planning meetings, ensure they are conducting a cost analysis to determine the best option for the state. And please remember that when traveling, you need to use all forms of transportation and hotel accommodations that are the most economical to the state. DCA has provided guidance, and it is imperative that we all work together to find savings. Moving on, I have an update related to Form 700, Statement of Economic Interest and Required Board Member Training Reminders. California law requires all DCA board members to complete the following. Number 1, Form 700, Statement of Economic Interest. This form must be filed within 30 days of assuming or leaving your appointment and annually on or before April 1st, 2024. This year's annual filing period covers the prior calendar year, January 1 through December 31, 2023. The deadline for filing is Monday, April 1st, 2024. To ensure compliance, DCA requests that Form 700 filers complete the e-filing by Friday, March 15, 2024. You should have recently received an email from NetFile with instructions on how to file your annual Form 700. If you have any questions or would like more information, please contact Melissa Gear at melissa.gear@dca.ca.gov. Next is a reminder regarding sexual harassment prevention training. This training must be completed every 2 years. The training is online, interactive, and can be completed at your convenience via the learning management system. All members must complete the 2-hour supervisory training. This training is available in the department's learning management system. If board members need assistance accessing LMS or additional information about any of these trainings, please contact your board's liaison or DCA Board and Bureau Relations at memberrelations@dca.ca.gov. Next is a reminder regarding defensive driver training. This training is required at least once every 4 years, is online, and interactive training that can be completed at your convenience. Course enrollments are now submitted via DGS's, which is Department of General Service, Learning Management System Pathways. Contact DGS University at dgs.ca.gov. Upon completion of any required trainings, please provide copies of completion certificates to your executive director and to DCA at memberrelations@dca.ca.gov. If you need to know if you've completed your required training courses, please reach out to Board and Bureau Relations. Looking ahead, DCA invites presidents and vice presidents to our president's training on February 22nd from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. This virtual 2.5-hour training will outline the role of a board president, including understanding the scope of their role, managing board members, communicating with the executive director, and performing administrative duties. This training not only provides valuable information from DCA staff, but will also have a panel of prior board members who have held executive positions on a board. Their knowledge and expertise will help sort through the significant role of a president and vice president, and they will also be available for a question and answer time. This training is not only for members who are new to the role of president or vice president, but also for those who have served in one of these roles for a year or more. Learning from each other is a large part of this training, and we look forward to seeing all board presidents and vice presidents on February 22nd. More information for this training will be available soon. In closing, the BBR team would like to thank the members and board staff for their hard work and partnership over the past year. We look forward to 2024 and all of the great work that lies ahead. Thank you for your continued service and for protecting the consumers of California. I appreciate your time this morning, and I'll hand it back to Board President Buhari and take any questions from the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Bucciarelli from members of the board?
I have a quick question. Just on the budget freeze, for opportunities where sponsorship for board members to attend events, are those allowed? So where there's no cost to the board?
Okay, so I think I'm going to defer, or I'd like you to defer that question to the budget team when they come up and present their information. Otherwise, Erica may know the answer to that when there are cost savings.
I don't think that's been covered particularly, but maybe perhaps we can ask budget.
Okay, okay.
Like a grant you're asking about. Any other board members want to public comment or want to comment? Any members of the public here present wish to comment on that agenda item? Seeing none. Moderator, any members of the any comments from members of the public online?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 7A, the DCA update, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And we'll give it a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, and thank
You're
you for that
welcome.
presentation.
Thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item 7B, which is the Budget Office update. And we have Harmony DiFilippo and Christina Ricci from the Budget's Office of Department of Consumer Affairs.
My name is Harmony DiFilippo, and I'm the budget manager with the DCA Budget Office. And I am joined by Karen Munoz, the DCA Budget Officer. I want to thank the board and executive staff for allowing me a few minutes to present on agenda item 7B, the board's expenditure projections and fund condition statement. First, I'm going to start with the board's expenditure projections, which is attachment 7B1 of your materials. These projections are based on actual data through fiscal month 5. The report includes 22-23 actual expenditures, as well as the 23-24 budgeted and projected expenditures. As we move to the end of the document, you will see the board had a beginning base budget of $3.541 million and is projected to spend a little over $3.5 million, creating a reversion to the board's fund of approximately negative $203,000, a reversion percentage of negative 6.07%. This is based off the projected costs associated with AG, Attorney General. Based on the 23-24 budget bill language, item 1111401, the board may request a current year augmentation related to Attorney General or Office of Administrative Hearing expenditures. The board is currently working with the Attorney General's office to determine how much additional appropriation is needed based on current and pending cases. Based on a straight line estimate, the additional appropriation would be approximately $210,000. In the handout provided, you will see an estimated projection that includes an AG augmentation of $210,000, which updates the budget to $3.561 million, creating a new reversion of a little over $6,000 and a reversion percentage of 0.18%. The next document I will go over is the board's revenue projections, which is attachment 7B2 of your materials. This report includes receipts collected through November and projected revenue to year end. I will go further into the projections as we transition into the next slide. The next document, attachment 7B3 of your materials, is the board's fund condition statement. As a reminder, we read this document top to bottom, left to right. The left column is the board's prior year 22-23 actuals. It shows the board began 22-23 with a beginning balance of a little over $4.4 million, collected $3.734 million in revenue, with $1.172 million from initial license fees, $2.378 million from license renewals, and $184,000 was collected from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The board expended approximately $3.6 million, which includes $273,000 in direct draws to the fund for statewide pro rata and pension payments. The board ended 22-23 with just over $4.5 million reserve balance, or 14.7 months in reserve. For current year 23-24, the board projects revenues of $3.62 million, with $1.192 million projected from initial license fees, $2.428 million from renewal fees, and $142,000 from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenues. The board's 23-24 expenditures are based on the governor's budget with FM5 projections at $3.751 million between authorized expenditures and direct draws to the fund, leaving the board's fund with a balance of approximately 4.5 million or 13.4 months in reserve. The Budget Office will continue to monitor the board's revenue and expenditures and report back to the board with monthly expenditure projections as we continue to close fiscal months in the current year. A few things to note about the fund condition. The fund condition is a snapshot in time. One of the main factors driving expenditure increases in future years is a result of personnel services adjustments. These include general salary increases as well as employee compensation and retirement rate adjustments. The Budget Office includes a conservative ongoing 3% increase on expenditures in the fund condition to account for those incremental adjustments. You will also notice revenue is projected static in the out years. Lastly, I would like to note to the board that any future legislation or unanticipated events could result in the board's need for additional resources, which would create cost pressures on the fund. The Budget Office will continue to monitor the board's fund condition and keep the line of communication with the board's executive staff open for any future needs or expectations. Again, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present at today's meeting, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from members of the board?
So I'll pose my question to you around the opportunity to utilize grants or sponsorships for board members to travel, go to conferences, where all their expenses are paid.
Michael Connotes, legal counsel.
Oh.
That's something that we'll need to analyze and discuss from a legal perspective. So we can chat after the meeting, or we can chat with our executive officer about those specifically.
Any comment from members of the public in the room? Seeing none. Moderator, any comments from members of the public online?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. If any member of the public has a comment relating to the budget update, please raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. And I do see we have a hand raised. So Tracy Dominguez, you should be able to unmute yourself. Oh. All right, so I'll try one more. Okay, Tracy, you're unmuted.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Okay, all right, no worries. All right, in that case, there are no comments. So I return the floor back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And thank you for that presentation.
Thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item 7C, which is Division of Investigations Office update. The Chief and Deputy Chief Kathleen Nichols and Stephanie Whitley from Department of Consumer Affairs, Division of Investigations.
Good morning. I am Kathleen Nichols with the Division of Investigation. Also with me is Stephanie Whitley, Deputy Chief for the Division of Investigations Health Quality Investigation Unit. It is our pleasure to provide the board an update on the Health Quality Investigation Unit, also known as HQIU. For fiscal year 23-24 to date, board staff have referred 36 complaints to be investigated by HQIU. As of January 2024, we are investigating a total of 60 pending cases, which have an open case average of 271 days. In addition to these numbers, we wanted to highlight a couple of cases recently in which HQIU investigators were able to turn around completed investigations in a very short time due to the statute of limitations. In these two specific cases, we were able to complete the needed investigative tasks in 30 and 60 days due to the excellent communication and teamwork with board staff, in addition to the tenacity of our investigative staff who work the cases. Currently, HQIU has 27 investigator vacancies, which is a 31% investigator vacancy rate. We currently have 26 candidates in background, 6 of which are in the final psychological and medical portion and hope to have final clearances soon. We are continuing to screen new applications for each office on a repetitive 30-day cycle, so we can quickly fill the remaining vacancies. In addition, we continue to participate in career fairs and recent law enforcement hiring events in Sacramento, Los Angeles, and San Jose. The Division of Investigation has some facilities projects we would like to share with you, which are anticipated to reduce costs for the allied health boards. Maximizing the efficiencies of telework, we are shrinking square footage as leases come up for renewal. For example, our San Jose office moved in September of 2023 to another location in San Jose, and we were able to reduce the square footage needed since we implemented shared workstations for staff instead of dedicated workstations for each employee. This has resulted in a decrease in rent of approximately $5,000 per month, a $60,000 annual reduction in lease costs for one field office. We also have several projects in process which will merge the investigation and enforcement unit offices with existing HQIU offices. The Lakewood IEU office is merging with Cerritos HQIU, the Hayward IEU office is merging with Concord HQIU, and the San Diego IEU office is merging with San Diego HQIU. It is anticipated these mergers could save an additional $50,000 annually per office. The IEU program will pay for their portion of space, creating a cost savings for HQIU and MBC, which is anticipated to lower the cost to the allied health boards. As leases come up for renewal, we are looking at merging additional offices in the future to maximize the cost savings we can achieve.
In April 2023, HQIU medical consultants participated in a whole day meeting and training, which covered items on case reviews, subject interviews, good cost statements, reviewing cures data, and overall case management. Their training was very well received, and we are now implementing biannual statewide meetings and trainings for the medical consultants to continue sharing best practices and allowing our medical consultants to collaborate on new ideas and efficiencies. Actually, the next statewide medical consultant meeting actually kicked off this morning at 8. So that is going great. At the end of June, we had the pleasure of attending the graduation ceremony for 3 new HQIU investigators from South Bay Regional Post-Basic Academy, Police Academy. The Academy staff expressed how impressed they were with our investigators, specifically noting their strong work ethic, their tenacity, and their ability as leaders to work as a team with their peers. In July, the division's training unit provided time tracking training to all HQIU investigative staff, focusing on the importance of accuracy for cost recovery purposes. The training was well received by staff. In September, we held a statewide supervisor meeting, which included presentations from DCA's performance management and health and safety units. In addition, we conducted specific training for supervisors on case management with the emphasis on completing investigations thoroughly and timely as possible. The training again was well received by our supervisors, and it was really great discussing goals and exploring new ideas actually in person. In October, all our division's sworn staff completed a post-certified mandatory peace officer training regarding racial bias and identity profiling. In December and January, all investigators will attend a post-certified search warrant training class. We have visited HQIU offices and spoken to investigators about their work experience and our goals for case aging and quality. The investigators are looking forward to having our remaining vacancies filled, so it will reduce the caseloads per investigator, which will assist them to reach case aging goals. We hold regular discussions with your board staff regarding enforcement needs, and we look forward to our continued collaboration and great working relationship we have with your board. This concludes our update, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the board?
I have a question. Ms. Nichols, how are you?
Good.
Just around the vacancy rate, that just seems really high. Almost feels like that's the highest I've ever heard. Just during my time being on, the medical boards. What has caused such a high vacancy currently?
It's a combination of things, really. We're competing with other departments that pay a lot more money. For example, even in the most recent Unit 7 contract, DOJ, Department of Justice, is now almost 20% higher pay. So we are losing staff for pay. And then also sometimes caseload's an issue. The amount of work we have, this job is very complex and very demanding. But it's such a valuable job, and there's so many of our investigators that are just, really in it for what they're doing every day to protect consumers. And so when we're conducting hiring panels, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for this match of person that is going to be their true calling. And yes, you can make more money somewhere else. And yes, you may have less cases somewhere else, but it's such an important job, and really getting those matches, just not people that are going to come, stay for a year or two, and then move on to the next best thing.
Okay.
So we're really focusing our interviews on that. We do have 26 people in background for those 27 vacancies. So we are still finding good candidates. It's just the process is long for the backgrounds. And so we're kind of working with that right now. But I'm hopeful that we will be able to fill these vacancies and then retain staff, because you can always hire staff, but the goal is really to retain them and get them to stay.
So what do you think are some of the incentives to retain? So removing money, right? Because we know how hard that is to get increases. So removing money, what else in your department that you do to create incentives that really keep the staff there?
One of the things we've implemented is called a continuous improvement team, and it's comprised of an investigator in each field office, and they get to meet at least quarterly and discuss improvement ideas, things that can improve their morale. And then we meet with them personally. There's 2 chairs of that committee, and they have a direct line to the chief and deputy chief. And we meet with them, we listen to them, hear what the ideas are in the field, what's the temperature. And we've made several changes based on those meetings. So I think that's really helpful to get, continual feedback from staff, understanding what their needs are. And then as we hire more staff, the caseloads will go down. It'll make things a little easier for staff. We do have a couple retired annuitants that we have hired to help with caseload in the meantime. So I think that's just and being flexible. I mean, I think the teleworking, the hybrid model, and the investigators are out in the field, they can be in the office, they're working from home, just kind of creating that balance for them as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I did want to add, Ms. Pines, that I think too, as a new medical board investigator, I remember he was soon retiring. He's like, it's going to take you 5 years to learn this job, because it is, like Chief Nichols pointed out, it's very technical. This is not for everybody. And I did want to highlight our training unit and all the efforts they have made to put on in-house training. And in addition to building up our FTO program, Field Training Officer program, which really helps give our new investigators that foundation of knowledge, so it's not so intimidating, and making sure that we are providing everything we can to our new staff, because it is an intimidating job and it can be very overwhelming at times. So we know that providing all those resources and support is just extremely valuable. So that is a big push for us also.
Good. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Dr. Bahari, if I can step in and just say some comments to these 2 ladies. I just want to thank you so much for everything that your office has done for this board in particular. coming into this office, enforcement being, my world of where I came from, there was a lot of age cases, and these ladies have been instrumental in providing me the right individuals that I can contact immediately, say, hey, guess what? 30 days, we have an SOL case that's coming down your pikes. And they have worked with me and have dropped everything to just get our case vetted and to the Attorney General's. Two particular cases, we got them in just in time to file accusations, most recently a petition to revoke. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you to your staff. Thank you to Melissa's unit, because without them, some of our cases could have been closed past statute. And so they have offered their assistance. They're communicating with me, meeting with me monthly, giving them a heads up of those cases that are coming up. And it's been quite a challenge to get those cases out of our office and in their hands, but they come in and do an amazing job.
Thank you. Any members of the public wish to comment on the presentation from the Division of Investigations? Seeing none here. Moderator, anybody online wish to public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. If any member of the public would like to comment on the update from the Division of Investigations, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment, and we are displaying instructions. All right, I see no requests for comments. So, Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 7D, which is the Attorney General Office update. And we have Senior Assistant Attorney General Gloria Castro and Staff Service Managers Ashley Harp and Maria Celerio from the Division of Operations Attorney General Office.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, esteemed board members and Executive Director Erica Calderon. I am Gloria Castro, Senior Assistant Attorney General in the Health Quality Enforcement section of the Attorney General's office. And as you've mentioned, I'm here with two staff service managers from our office, Maria Celerio and Ashley Harp. They come to us from the Department of Justice's Operations Unit, and I call them the budget folks, endearingly. I have been asked by Executive Director Calderon to appear, and I appreciate her invitation. It is truly a privilege and honor to uphold your important mission in both the prosecution and enforcement of your disciplinary laws, as well as defense counsel work, of which you have on a yearly basis. We are 70 legal professionals in HQE. We work diligently and enthusiastically to perform all these legal tasks on your behalf. We really enjoy working for your executive staff in our daily work, and ultimately for you, the board, as we represent you throughout the state of California and enforcing your mission. Today we have two agenda items. We have the agenda materials. Agenda items 71 and 72 are part of your meeting packets. Item number 71 is a copy of the frequently asked questions concerning legal services revolving funds. This is a document that was created in 2019-2020 when the Department of Justice raised its billing rates, and many of the frequently asked questions are still and have the same answers. The Attorney General billing rates are referenced in there, and Ms. Celerio and Ms. Harp are present to answer any questions relating to that area. Furthermore, you have item number 72, and this is the 6th annual overview of statistics for the accusation work that the Attorney General completes on your behalf. The Attorney General's office is required to present this data for every single Department of Consumer Affairs client under Business and Professions Code section 312.2, and this is, like I mentioned, the 6th report. And I included some of the materials that sort of explain every single metric that the legislature requested that we transparently report on a yearly basis. And the data for 2022 and 2023, which was just published on January 1st of 2024, shows the work that we completed last year and the data metrics relating only to that completed work. At the same time, it also reflects how much work was sent to our office. And so it shows that there were 23 accusation matters and that we finished adjudicated, so to speak, 22 matters. And so, like I said, the performance metrics for each of those 22 matters is listed in table 2. And of the 22 adjudicated matters, 3 were defaults, 16 were settlements, 2 were withdrawn, and 1 went to a full administrative hearing. And in closing, I would like to take a brief moment to acknowledge the contributions of Carolyn Westfall. She's a Deputy Attorney General in our office, and she is assigned as your liaison. And she assists your executive staff and team with legal counsel and advice. She would meet frequently as needed with you to discuss any issues of relevance to the board. And she is always available to help the in-house counsel from DCA as well. And so I'll conclude my remarks by thanking you once again for inviting us to say hello. And like I said, it's a privilege and honor to do your work. And we're very, very committed to also protecting the health and safety of California consumers and to also protect your esteemed profession. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from members of the board? Dr. Luzak?
Yes, thank you. Can you help us to interpret the significance of these data presented in table 2? So are there any target metrics? I see mean, median, standard deviation, but is there a target metric for each of these categories? Thank you.
Yes, the target metric is as soon as possible to reach every single metric. The most important of which would be metric number 1, from the receipt of the referral from your board to us to when an accusation is filed. These are calendar days, not working days. And for example, here it shows 22 items were measured. That relates immediately to table 1, submetric 7. And so that's why the count is 22 there. And it shows the metrics for the mean and the median. As Ms. Calderon was referencing, that metric can be affected by receiving a case that we have to file within 1 day because the statute of limitations is going to expire. But it could also encapsulate items that are sent to us for legal review that require more work and more deep analysis and perhaps additional investigative work. So of those 22 matters, that's the average. And then obviously the median, just so you could see the standard deviations and understand that there's probably an outlier in there.
Thank you. I can understand a goal of as soon as possible, but in order to, have some sort of benchmark, I'm asking if there's a benchmark for whether or not your organization is, meeting expectations. So I appreciate the goal of trying to do things as soon as possible, but I'd just like to understand, how you assess whether you're doing a great job or could be doing better based on these metrics you're presenting.
I think everyone could always do better, but the answer is no. We don't have a published metric by which we hold ourselves accountable. The bottom line is that every time we publish this data, we always find ways to be able to do the work as fast as we can, and we achieve that mark. At the same time, the results are also not captured here, and it's good to understand the metrics together with what you get at the end. So revocations, surrenders, are the goal when a case is particularly um, heinous, I should say. And then short of that, if someone does deserve to have the board's approval for a probationary term, then that is what happens. So it's difficult to answer that question other than to say that as soon as we receive a case, we assign it, we work as fast as possible to have an accusation drafted for you. And Ms. Calderon reviews those accusations. So the bottom line is that to answer the question, completed investigations are sent to our office. If they meet the filing burden, we draft them as accusations, depending on how voluminous the documents are and the report of investigation and expert opinions, and whether or not we need to talk to the expert, meet with the witness, meet with the patient. Sometimes in sex cases, that is definitely what we have to do, is meet with the patient and get their side of the story, and so we could draft a very meaningful accusation in a draft form. The client staff reviews the accusation and then presents the pleading to the executive officer or other authorized representative to sign it. And the accusation is filed when it is signed by Ms. Calderon. So this metric captures not only my work of receiving Ms. Nichols's completed investigation, our work in deciding whether or not it meets the burden, and reviewing sometimes thousands of pages of documents, and then drafting an accusation that fits the facts to the disciplinary statutes that apply to the particular case. Mostly we deal with standard of care, so that means gross negligence or anything short of that, and other unprofessional conduct. And when we present that to Ms. Calderon, she looks at it. If she has questions, she will ask, and she's very motivated, and she does pick up the phone.
Thank you for describing the processes. You've answered my question. Thank you.
Yeah, so basically, this metric involves not only the time in my office, but also the time in the executive officer's office. So I'm pretty sure Ms. Calderon moves that stuff as quickly as possible as well.
If I can step in and kind of give a little bit of addition to that sentiments. As I mentioned before, there are a lot of age cases. And so literally what we're doing at the moment in enforcement is passing the baton as quickly as possible. So once our desk investigation is complete, we're forwarding those to DFI for formal investigations. DFI investigators or supervising investigators are very, very communicative with me. They immediately email me, letting me know that there's a completed case coming my way. They send to us what's called an ENF form with their findings and well, sort of their completion. And then as those come in, I meet with the analyst immediately within a couple of days, probably with that same very next day or the day of, that transmittal gets sent back. And then we're analyzing that to send it over, whether it goes to the Attorney General's office or it stays in-house for a pre-accusation PLR, a citation, depending upon the findings. The Attorney General, likewise, Ms. Kathleen Nichols' office is extremely diligent to communicate with me, and I'm communicating with the liaison as well, letting them know that we have a high priority case because of statutes at this moment. Most of them are coming with that urgency because like I mentioned, there are some age cases that we're dealing with. So the communication right now is key in getting that over as soon as possible. My staff have been trained to flag these cases for them in the transmittals, letting them know. And there is a process. They have to legally review it for acceptance. And I'm seeing those coming in within 2 to 3 days at max. Most recently, as mentioned, we did have one of those 2 cases that we needed to file immediately. And I can say that the case was transmitted Monday morning, and we had that accusation filed in our office on Wednesday. That's how short we are in running these cases. And so I can my experience in the last year has been amazing with these two offices. They're working with me. My hopes are that in a year, we're going to be in a much better state where we're not running to get these cases filed. But as you can say, you can see in our most recently, you can see a visual of what we're doing in our newsletter. There is a section for all of our discipline, and you can see how much more discipline we are taking now. And I couldn't do it without these two offices. So thank you, Ms. Gloria Castro again, and most significantly, Carolyn Westfall for being there to answer all my questions and getting the communication out to the different offices that things are coming their way as well.
Thank you. Any members of the public present wish to comment on that agenda item? Seeing none. Moderator, are there any members of the public online who wish to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. We are now taking comments on the update from the Attorney General's office. So if you have a comment on that update, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. I see we have several hands up, and we'll start with Kimberly Turbin. And Kimberly, you should be able to mute yourself. There you go.
Okay, hi, my name is Kimberly Turbin, and I am from Los Angeles, and I also volunteer with Consumer Watchdog. I am joining my fellow advocates to call on the board to follow the law regarding complaint prioritization for death complaints. We have several issues with this board. You are not following the DCA complaint prioritization system, which requires you to refer to death complaints to investigation, which you are not doing. You are required to grant children under the age of 18 years old the special statute of limitations for minor children. You have denied both Malachi De Leon and Anayeli Alvarez the right to a special statute of limitations. You do not follow the law and you closed both complaints, claiming it was due to the statute of limitations. You also have an issue with staff directing complaints directly to the Deputy Attorney General and not submitting the complaint through the actual enforcement process with the DAG, telling staff to close complaints. It is time to make this right. Reopen both of these complaints and meet your mission of consumer protection. Thank you.
Our next comment is from Maria Ibarra Navarrete. Maria, you should be able to unmute.
I am Maria Ibarra Navarrete. I am from San Jose, and I am a volunteer with Consumer Watchdog. I would like to thank the Attorney General's office for presenting their report. It has been informational and has also highlighted my primary issue with this board. As the Attorney General's report states, this board is required to follow Business and Professional Code Section 328 and utilize the DCA complaint prioritization guidelines, which you are not doing. Per Section 328, my brother's death complaint should have been referred to investigation, but it was not. My brother's death complaint should have been identified as a Category 1 urgent complaint and should be under investigation right now instead of closed, due to a medical consultant claiming that he or she would have done the same thing within my brother's medical care. That alone is an issue that has left me baffled at what kind of medical consultants you have reviewing these cases, but that isn't the focus of discussion today. The issue is that this board is breaking the law and not referring our death complaints, including my brother's, to investigation. My fellow team members have already brought this issue to your attention, and this board took no action. You ignored them. Today, the Attorney General's office has confirmed in their report that you are required to refer these death complaints to investigation. So how are you going to fix this? You are not protecting consumers. We do not want to hear the empty words of omission that you are ignoring. I want my brother's complaint reopened and referred to investigation, as you are required to do so, and the Attorney General's report states you are required to do. Thank you.
All right, the next request for comment is from Michelle Montserrat Ramos. And Michelle, you should be able to unmute. All right.
Good morning. I am Michelle Montserrat Ramos, and I'm with Consumer Watchdog. As you know, we have come before this board a number of times to report to you that board staff is not following the law. One public board member asked for our issues to be placed on a future agenda, and it was denied, stating that you are planning a board presentation, which happens to be this presentation. We asked for this issue to be presented, but we also asked for the DAG's role in the enforcement process to be discussed because we had issues with a specific DAG that covers cases in the Central Valley. You have heard it from my team, but these issues cannot be stressed enough. First, you are not following Business and Professions Code Section 328, which calls on you to refer death cases and serious bodily injury cases to investigation. You're not doing this. You're closing death complaints with no investigation and no input from the complainant. You closed Jose Ibarra's death complaint. You closed Malachi De Leon's death complaint. You closed Anayeli Alvarez's serious bodily injury complaint. Anayeli will never be able to walk and is still on a feeding tube. You are not following the law that provides a special statute of limitations for minor children. You denied Malachi De Leon and Anayeli Alvarez the right to the special statute, citing that they were not minor children, citing family law that's not relevant to this board. Malachi was born alive and lived for 18 hours, and Anayeli lived and is now 8 years old. Her complaint was falsely closed. You cannot continue to deny babies and children their right to have their deaths and horrific lifelong harm investigated. Lastly, we have an issue with a DAG that is overseeing cases in the Central Valley. The issues with this DAG goes back to 2016, if not further. Your staff was taking complaints from the public, and instead of submitting them into your system to be analyzed, he was sending them to the DAG, who was telling him to close these complaints because they wouldn't go anywhere. Explain to me how you can allow these complaints to not even enter your enforcement process. Must I remind you, there is no vertical enforcement. The DAG had no say in complaints as they arrived to your CC unit, yet he did. He said close the complaint and your staff did. So the time has come. You can no longer ignore this team. As I said earlier, we're not going anywhere. We will resolve these issues of this board not following the law, of this board denying justice for babies, and the DAG not representing the client and telling staff to close cases, and staff ignoring the entire process and just going directly to the DAG. Take care of this issue now. Reopen these complaints now. Thank you.
All right, the next request for comment is from Tracy Dominguez. And Tracy, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I am Tracy. Okay, I am Tracy Dominguez, and I'm a little emotional. I am from Bakersfield, and I'm a volunteer consumer watchdog. I have spent almost 2 years participating in your board presentation from the Attorney General's office, and I am pleased to see it is finally occurring today. As I stated before, one of my issues is how the DAG that has been involved in the number of Central Valley cases has interacted with our staff regarding our complaints. A discussion on the DAG's role in the enforcement process before the complaint is investigated is not included in this report. So I will start the discussion. You have a staff that bypasses your own enforcement process and was taking our complaints and going directly to the DAG for his input. This DAG was telling your staff to close these complaints before they were analyzed and refer to an investigation. How can your staff completely bypass your own process? And how can the Attorney General's office allow this to happen? Due to this DAG's interference, repeat offender doctors were allowed to continue to practice and continue to harm Californians. Again, we have come before this board a number of times and reported it to you, and the staff has allowed the DCA complaint prioritization guidelines, which you require to forward our death complaints to investigation. You know that the BNP section 328 states that how the AG reports has confirmed this. You can continue to ignore us and keep breaking the law. Now it's time to fix it. You are not protecting consumers, and you are not putting us and our families at risk. I am calling on this board to commit today to assuring that your staff refers all death complaints to an investigation, and the code requires you to. That you reopen the death complaints, including my grandson's death, Malachi De Leon's complaint. Lastly, you are denying babies the right to have the deaths investigated. You are denying babies the right to a special statute of limitations for minor children. You denied my grandson, Malachi, the special statute of limitations for minor children and stated that you did not consider him a minor child. That you denied a special statute of limitations for an 8-year-old little girl. You closed both of these complaints and denied the basic rights of human beings. And you had my grandson's death complaint and did nothing with it for 3 years and quietly closed it without telling me.
15 seconds.
I still don't have a letter from the board notifying me the outcome of my grandson's complaint. Where is consumer protection? And your values of accountability and consumer protection does not exist. Reopen my grandson's death.
I'm sorry, your time is up. For the sake of time, we're moving on to the next request for public comment. Xavier De Leon. Xavier, you should be able to unmute yourself.
And I'm a volunteer with Consumer Watchdog. I'm glad that this issue was placed on the agenda because it has been a while since we had originally asked for it. It has been a while since I have spoken on here, and I'd just like to remind you of my story. My son had died in my arms due to medical negligence back in 2019 after only living 18 hours. When my family and I came to the board for accountability, we were only met with dead ends. When the board ignored my son's basic rights, and also when they denied him an investigation because he didn't meet the statute of limitations for minor children. Just a reminder, he only lived 18 hours. As my fellow advocates have said, this board is not following Business and Professions Code 328. My son had 2 complaints, one by my family and the other from the medical board, and both were ignored for 3 years, which led it to being closed, and we didn't even receive a response or letter from the board. It was closed because the statute had ended, but it doesn't make sense because, again, my son was born and alive for 18 hours. Therefore, I can fight for the rest of my life for my son because he will never turn 18 and reach the statute of limitations that is granted to all minors in California. Me and my family need answers and a commitment from this board by reopening my son Malachi's case. Because in my experience with all of this, you have broken 2 laws. I am willing to take this issue to the highest level in order to make sure the law is followed. No is not an option anymore. Thank you.
All right, this is a moderator, and that is the last of requests for comment. Mr. Board President, I'm returning the floor back to you.
Thank you. At this point, before we move on to the next agenda item, let's take a 15-minute break, and then we'll continue. Back into session. Okay.
All right.
So I'm going to have Machiko do a roll call after the break.
Gore Damian,
Here.
Dr. Buhari,
Present.
Dr. Jensen, Dr. Luzak,
Present.
Andrew Marino,
Present.
Dr. Patel,
Present.
Denise Pines,
Here.
quorum established.
Thank you. And we'll move on to agenda item number 8. This is the update from the National Board of Osteopathic Medical Examiners. We have President and CEO John Gimple, and Douglas Murray, the General Counsel for the NBOME. Thank you for attending.
Morning, and thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and to the board members, the DOs and public members, as well as the staff, the Executive Director, Erica Calderon. Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is John Gimple with the NBOME, the National Board of Osteopathic Medical Examiners, and my colleague Doug Murray, our General Counsel, who many of you know from prior updates, is here with me on the Zoom as well. So we have a little bit of content we prepared as a very brief NBOME and Comlex USA update for you. But first, before I jump to that, I wanted to just do two things. One was to thank you for doing what you do. We know that it's a thankless job sometimes, and sometimes comes with it inordinate pressures and stressors. But we know that you protect the public and you protect the citizens of California in particular with making sure that those who receive licenses and continue to renew licenses are in fact competent to practice osteopathic medicine in California and give the patients what they deserve in terms of DOs who are minimally competent, hopefully even more so, to practice osteopathic medicine in your beautiful state. So thank you for what you do. You are truly public servants, and we really appreciate that. We also thank you for your trust in NBOME and the Comlex USA licensing exam program, which we have a few updates for. Before I jump into the kind of few updates that Doug and I prepared for you, thought I would open it up, if that's okay, Mr. Chair, to any questions or concerns that any of you have to make sure that we address in the short 10 minutes or so that we have to update you today.
Sure. Any board members wish to ask anything of Dr. Gimple? No, I think we can go ahead and move forward.
Well, I know you're thinking it's very cold there in Sacramento. I believe most of you are in Sacramento. Some of you might be south of that if you're on the Zoom. But I'll let you know that in our Chicago office, it's still kind of in the teens. And that's within the office. I'm not talking about outdoors. And in our Philadelphia office, where I am coming to you from today, it's going to be about 30 for the high, 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's chilly everywhere, and that's the weather report from here. Few updates, and if you go to the next slide, thank you so much. Our mission, just like yours, is protecting the public. Ours happens to be through assessment, and you use our assessments, including Comlex, to help do your job. And again, we appreciate your trust. I will just state we are celebrating our 90th year. 90 years ago this year, the NBOME was founded as part of that self-regulation responsibility that the profession has to stand up and set the standards for who enters the profession. Just like, again, your mission statement, protecting the public, making sure that everybody who seeks care from an osteopathic physician knows that they have demonstrated their competencies for that specific practice. Next slide. Our portfolio does include some other assessments. We have about 125 full-time people who work for the organization. We have about 850 national faculty, many DOs and PhDs and MDs and others, including many from the great state of California, which, as you know, and certainly your volume would attest, you are now the #1 state in terms of more DOs in California than in any other state in the United States. Does anybody know when the last year it was, other than last year, because it happened over the last year or so, where there were more DOs in California than any other state? You knew I would quiz you, right, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I'm failing so far.
Well, the last year that there were more DOs in California than there were in any other state was 1962. For you history buffs, you can go back and look at the history there. So an interesting little anecdote. But anyway, in addition to COMLEX, we have a COMVEX variable purpose exam. We have other assessments that are used in medical education, used in residency training, and also some of our partnership exams used beyond that for continuous professional development, including by the American Osteopathic Association in about 12 of their specialties for continuous certification, partnering with NBOME on those assessments. Next slide. So just a quick reminder, no news to you, but COMLEX is a licensing exam. It's designed expressly for your use and the use by the other jurisdictions. Every single state and territory and whatever that licenses DOs, which is all of them in the United States, uses COMLEX, relies on COMLEX, and or requires COMLEX. And of course, there are other countries now, including Australia and others, whose licensing authorities now deem COMLEX as a credential for evaluating, giving a license to a DO or registering a DO for practice. So we're very excited about that, including a little closer to home, at least up the coast from you, in Canada, where a number of the provinces continue to expand their recognition of US DOs with credentials, including osteopathic certification and COMLEX. I will also just remind you that it's required to take and pass COMLEX level 1 and level 2 to get a license anywhere, and that's because you don't get a DO degree after your name since 2007 unless you pass that. That's because the accreditor of DO schools, called the COCA, the Commission on Osteopathic College Accreditation, which is recognized by the U.S. Department of Education as the authority for accrediting DO schools, requires taking and passing COMLEX, kind of a very important quality assurance standard that the profession has for that DO degree. Next slide. You know that COMLEX is not just one test, it's kind of a beast in terms of its 3 different exams over 4 different days, typically, and over usually about 4 different years in taking these exams to demonstrate your competencies. And while there is not a formal clinical skills exam day per se, like there was with the level 2 PE exam right up until the pandemic in March of 2020, that exam was permanently suspended, if you will. There is still an attestation requirement regarding clinical skills competencies that I will give you an update on this morning for you. But those are the level 1, level 2, and level 3 designs as currently stand. Next slide. You have to take and pass level 1 in order to take level 2, and the same in order to take level 3, so they're maturation and developmentally appropriate. Some differences in the way we report scores and what goes on the transcript. For level 1, we only report a pass or fail on the transcript. There is no numerical data. For level 2 CE, that's typically a 3rd or 4th year DO student, they do get the pass or fail determination and a 3-digit score, similar to what you've been accustomed to. And for level 3, there's also a 3-digit standard score, 350 being the number, and equivalent, if you will, to the 75 standard score of days gone by. And the transcript will really report out that kind of data. I will point out that since transitioning the level 1 to a pass-fail in order to try to reduce a little of the burden of stress that students were reporting or distraction from their curriculum, we have noticed some decreased stress in taking level 1, but we do provide to every candidate a secondary report that is really just designed for them. It's not part of the transcript. That is a formative performance profile. So every student knows where they're relatively strong and where they're not so strong, in an opportunity for a growth mindset, kind of for continuous quality improvement, so they can continue to focus to be the best osteopathic physician that they can be. Next slide. So COMLEX has 4 attempt limits per level. So level 1 is 4, level 2 CE 4, level 3, and we do give the authority under exceptional circumstances. The licensing authority can request an exception or a petition for an exception of 1 additional attempt. That's usually for very extenuating circumstances where a particular state, because of workforce issues or others, believes that this candidate is going to be a benefit to the workforce and should get a 5th attempt. But for most, it's 4 attempts for any level, and that's pretty consistent with licensing exams across the U.S. for physicians. Next slide. So that's kind of the updates on COMLEX. We will circle back and give you a little bit of a clinical skills update. But before I do, just remind you that we do have COMVEX, the variable purpose exam, very similar in content to the level 3 of COMLEX, but just one day, 300 test items, basically delivered at Pearson VUE Test Centers, which is where all of our COMLEX exams are delivered. And it is only given upon the eligibility deemed by a state, like your board, who would want to explore the competency of application of osteopathic knowledge of a previously licensed individual. Usually it's somebody for reentry, they've been out of practice for a while, or there's some other reason why you'd want a report on their individual application of knowledge competency, and that's what COMVEX is described. You would get the score report yourself, and as the state licensing board, and there's much more information on our website about this assessment. Next slide. So this is just the quick update on clinical skills. I know last time we were with you, we were talking about the special commission and giving you an update that our board felt that the competencies like doctor-patient communication, hands-on physical exam, and OMT were critically important competencies for licensure. We had a temporary situation where we call it the attestation, where we ask each dean to attest that each candidate has been personally assessed on these competencies at the graduation level and check off on that before they're eligible, i.e. for graduation, and then also for taking our level 3. That's been kind of a temporary situation to at least make sure these skills, really core fundamental skills, are being assessed. But recognizing that our board felt, and the special commission we put together, which has a full report on our website, felt this needed some more exploration. Maybe instead of having the PE exam like we used to have at 2 national centers, and we were working to create a third one in California, as you may recall, maybe this could be done at the COM campuses. I was just at your Western University Pomona, California campus right before Christmas. And you also have 2 other DO schools, I understand, up near Fresno, and certainly Toro up in near San Francisco. And at Western U, they have a very updated simulation facility where they use standardized patients and other simulation activities to check people off on these competencies in order to form out to complete that attestation. Next slide. But I won't go into the great detail of the initial postponements and then the special commission work and others, but I will assure you that these reports are on our website, and also that licensing representatives from the licensing community in the DO world were heavily represented, as were public members, patient members. We had patient advocates, including one from California who was very eloquent, who talked about the importance of the hands-on component of physical exam, in the room OMT, and also in the room communication that was important to, in her mind, to protecting the public and to making sure every DO has these capabilities. So we surveyed the schools. We found out about 75% of them were doing something along these lines. Next slide. We put out a draft of potentially a pilot research study where we could explore delivering a similar competency assessment to the PE exam, but somewhat different, modernized, and delivered at COM campuses to reduce any burden of cost or travel or whatever from the candidates, the students. And we put out an RFP and funded pilot studies at colleges of osteopathic medicine. And last year we had 6 different campuses, 4 different colleges of osteopathic medicine were awarded the grants to do these studies. And we tested over 800 students. Next slide. And to try to verify that they had fundamental clinical skills in building a history with a patient, in communicating with a patient, in hands-on physical exam and an OMT through a multi-station OSCE type format in order to earn kind of this badge of, yes, you've demonstrated these competencies. Our model currently does include arm's length, trained physician and certified physician examiners from all around the country, so that if a student was taking the exam on their campus in Michigan, I'll just give you an arbitrary example, the physician examiners are from elsewhere around the country to kind of give us that arm's length assessment. Next slide. And you can see what it looked like. It looks just like the PE exam used to. It looks like the OSCEs that are happening at many of the DO schools, where students are interacting with standardized patients and coming out and completing a post-encounter exercise. They do OMT, they interview patients. And perhaps the biggest surprise is, even though the training was a bit abbreviated and there were only 8 stations, the PE exam used to have 12, et cetera, we were able to demonstrate a very reliable assessment, specifically around doctor-patient communication, interpersonal skills, and professionalism. The aspects that deal with core cultural competency, respectfulness, deal with communicating with people of differences, and what have you, was very, very reliable, and probably even reliable enough for high-stakes purposes. So that was very exciting, given just our first pilot year. Next slide. The feedback from students was this was a great opportunity to demonstrate skills that I have garnered, and/or we appreciate the diversity involved in the exams, and the faculty as well as the deans involved. One of the deans said he far underestimated the value that having this on his campus would give to both the students, the faculty, and even the standardized patients in their community. So it was a very successful first year, 2023. Next slide. So of course that laid the groundwork for further investment. Next slide, please. In more pilots. So now we're going to be piloting at 8 or 9 DO schools, potentially 10 campuses this next year, 2024. Taking it to the next level, working with the schools that we worked on. In fact, here in our Philadelphia office, despite the 3 to 6 inches of snow predicted overnight, we're expecting about 15 representatives from those pilot schools coming into our office to help develop the prototype and refine the prototype to build this together so that it's the schools, the expertise there, and the national board putting together an arm's length kind of national standardized assessment of clinical skills that, who knows, might potentially work its way back into COMLEX someday, or might be just a service that are available to schools. But one thing for sure, we are continuing to make sure that when people come to you to get a license, they have demonstrated all of their competencies, at least all those that can be assessed, including these fundamental competencies of communication with patients, hands-on physical exam, and OMT. And our board has professed to announce to the community by July of 2025 what the next steps are. I can also tell you that licensing board representatives are available every step of the way. I met with several of them yesterday in Washington, D.C. at the meeting on AI that the Federation of State Medical Boards had, and they're very excited about this, and I hope you're excited in California about this initiative. We'll love to get your feedback here shortly. Next slide. If you like video or you want to learn more on our website, you can go and you can see updates. In fact, it's very transparent. We're sharing with everyone, including all of the schools, even if they're not participating in pilots, what's going on, so that schools can play along. They can continue to see where we're going with this, continue to evolve their own programs to kind of stay up on this. And it's a real exciting collaborative project across the whole profession, not just an NBOME initiative. Next slide. The last thing I have to share with you is just some really good news. I know that many of the DO students training in our schools now have a much smaller world than we used to, in terms of they might want to go practice in other countries. They might want to go to Canada. They might want to go to Australia. I mentioned earlier, we've had a lot of great victories working alongside mostly the AOA, the American Osteopathic Association, in this realm. But this last year was really a pinnacle in about 15 to 20 years of extended efforts to through the international licensure community of physicians, to help them to understand who DOs are, what they do, what they're capable of, and hey, maybe you ought to consider licensing them, or removing barriers to registration or licensure in your countries. And this 47 country group called IAMRA, the regulators, International Association of Medical Regulatory Authorities, did issue a new resolution to support the equivalency of the American DO degree for the purposes of licensure and the competencies that DOs have. So very, very exciting. And next slide. That went on top of a number of other international wins, and I know one a little bit close to home because it was a U.S. and Osteopathic Medical Board of California licensed DO certified by the AOA and OBGYN, who actually was the first in modern history to receive a full unrestricted license to practice in India over this last year. So we're celebrating that together, and that's very exciting. But country by country, jurisdiction by jurisdiction, people are understanding that this DO way of doing things is a wonderful solution to the workforce circumstances, but more importantly, a great way to potentially attract really competent body, mind, spirit type of doctors who will help take care of patients in their world as well. So a lot of wins over the last couple of years. Again, I give a lot of credit to the AOA, the American Osteopathic Association, as well as other organizations like the Federation of State Medical Boards who helped significantly on this most recent issue with the IAMRA, since they essentially staff that organization. Next slide. That's pretty much all we have in terms of the very quick content update. I hope that was quick enough for you. Mr. Chair, anyone, we'd be happy to open up for questions and also for feedback or concerns or your reaction to the update on the clinical skills evolution with the C3DO assessment.
Thank you very much for that presentation. It was very, very effective and very eye-opening, and we believe that there's a lot of value in what you do and what the NBOME brings to public protection. Any other comments from board members?
Yeah.
Dr. Lusak and Ms. Pines?
Okay. I just a couple things. I'm glad that you're sort of supporting the clinical skill assessment. I think that's just really important. I do other kinds of work, and in that work, we find that one of the biggest challenges is the patient-physician communication being really, really poor and ending up in poor outcomes for the patient. So I've been concerned since the very beginning when we eliminated that part of the exam for both the DOs and the MDs. So I'm glad that you're investing into a process that may make this come back. The other thing, I don't think I heard you talk about the compact. Did you talk about the compact? Okay. I just like to hear your thoughts around that, as that is now starting to come over into sort of the, this sphere, is obviously in medical boards across the country. I want to say there's probably 36, 38, and there's another 7 that are moving forward to it being one of the largest states is New York, right? So I wanted to get your thoughts on how do you see this moving forward, if you see it moving forward in this space.
Thank you very much for your feedback on clinical skills, as well as a question about the compact. Mr. Murray, did you want to take the compact question?
Sure, Dr. Gimple. Can the board hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, for some reason my camera is not coming on. But yes, that is the compact is something that NBOME has been looking into, and we are supportive of the compact. Generally, certainly the goals of streamlining the process of licensure, we fully support. I think there are some concerns we do have about, especially a state like California, where there are requirements by the statute that certain exams are taken, and for DOs, as I'm sure all of you on the board know, that there's a requirement for a DO to take the COMLEX USA in California, and under the compact there is the potential that there could be some individuals who are licensed or potentially seeking to be licensed that might not have satisfied the state's statutory requirements or the rules. So that is something that while we're supportive of it, we also are supportive of boards having the opportunity to do their due diligence and be able to do their own investigations before licenses are granted. So we are supportive, but we do encourage some maybe further investigation and maybe some modifications to the procedures that are already put in place to address and there's been other concerns as well about background checks and things like that with other states that I think are being addressed, but we would kind of have the same, we're supportive of it, but encourage an open discussion of the process as it actually is being implemented.
Thank you.
Michael Luzak, thank you so much. Two questions. One, can you tell us how many states require ComVex for licensure? And the second question is, as the graduate medical education consolidation under the ACGME moves forward, can you speak to how COMLEX exams are being accepted by residency selection committees as compared to USMLE? So the students are required to take the COMLEX exams in order to graduate from medical school, but at least in my experience, there was quite a bit of difficulty at predominantly MD ACGME programs in terms of comparing COMLEX scores to USMLE. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Luksak. I think I have your two questions. The requirement of convex, I'm not sure of any state that actually requires convex. I know that there's about 5 or 6 that we're aware of that have used or use convex for the purposes of reentry, somebody who's received an additional their first license somewhere else, but or maybe they haven't been in practice, they haven't seen a patient in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years or so, and they have some other reason to assess their overall competencies. Sometimes they use convex as part of a overall holistic competency review of a doctor who demonstrated a need to have this recheck, whether it's through the program in Colorado, CPAP, which can include convex, or but look at other competencies, professionalism or documentation or that kind of thing. So probably the state that uses it the most is Florida. It's not really designed as an initial licensure exam. It's designed for somebody who's already received an initial license and needs some further evaluation. It's not a high volume program at all, but we know that the states who use it, and when we've met with the AAOE, the American Association of Osteopathic Examiners, and other licensing board reps like yourself, many of the states have said it's something we just need to have in our back pocket as something to tell somebody we're going to require or that we need to have for us to do our job in protecting the public. The questions about single GME, the single accreditation system for GME, it started in 2015 and matured fully in 2020. There was a lot of concern that, oh my gosh, what is this? Is this going to cause a merger, like an elimination of the osteopathic profession, and there's just going to be one medical profession? But I'll remind you that it wasn't the ACGME as it stood then taking over all accreditation. It was joining with the AOA to have one accreditor that was both DO and MD, that was both osteopathic and for MD physicians. And there's either 8 or 10 members of the ACGME board of directors who are now DOs. Prior to the single GME, there was not one single DO on the ACGME board in the entire history, which is only since 1982, I think, of the ACGME. We even had a board chair, Dr. Karen Nichols, who some of you may know, who was a DO, who was the board chair of the ACGME board. The good news is, specific to your question, most residency programs, most residency program directors and DIOs understand DOs, welcome DOs, and in fact, understand COMLEX and use COMLEX as part of, we hope, a holistic review of an applicant for applying to a residency. Not the be-all and end-all of who to interview, mind you, but yes, this candidate has passed their exam or has a certain score on a certain exam. We want to interview her. There are, however, some regional differences. There are some differences in specialty. We were very successful over the last year in working with 7 different specialties. And there's a whole section on our website, if you're interested, Doctor, it's called Education and Advocacy, where these specialty organizations, they're usually like leadership groups, like the Residency Program Directors in Emergency Medicine, called CORD, or the Program Director Group in Anesthesiology, or the Residency Program Director, as well as the resident, as well as the educator and medical school groups in pediatrics, just to give you 3 of the 7, who came up with very strong statements that said, in summary, I'll paraphrase, DOs add value to our residencies and should be accepted and interviewed in all of our programs, all residencies. Number 2, DO candidates, add value, and their licensure assessment should be deemed equivalent to the MD licensing exam, which is called USMLE, for the purposes of applying to residencies. And no DO student should be felt intimidated, bullied, or otherwise to think that they need to take a second licensing exam for the purposes of applying to residencies. And some of them are stronger than others in terms of their statements, but they're very strong. And you can, through our website, click to the original documents and see, it really, emergency med, OBGYN was just added. So it's very reassuring that there are people across the whole House of Medicine who are stepping up to say, you know what, for any DO student who thinks to apply to residencies, they need to take a second licensing exam on top of the one that they have that's valid and reliable, et cetera. That's unfair. It's a systemic bias. It's a disadvantage. It's not consistent with holistic review, and we need to eliminate that discriminatory practice. So we are seeing great results there. We still have a few specialties that are a little tricky. Surgery, to give you, one particular specialty where there's still a pretty good number of residency program directors who either purport not accepting DOs, not interviewing DOs, not wanting to take DOs or preferring them, or asking a DO for a second licensing exam with really no scientific grounds to do so, other than historic bias and lack of maybe understanding of this concept. So I think we continue to make great progress. As long as there's one residency out there in one state that asks a DO for a USMLE, DO students will get very concerned and anxious about it, and I don't blame them. They want to have more opportunities, and they want to have every opportunity open to them for training in every specialty. But as I've said to them, and I believe very strongly, and I think we have good evidence to support, there has never been a better time to be a DO student applying to residencies and having more opportunities that in the past would have not been open to them, now open to them, than today in 2024. So I hope that answers your question, Doctor.
Thanks so very much.
Thank you. Any members of the public here?
Could I just make one more comment? Sorry. Dr. Gimple, Himesh Patel here. Thanks so much for your leadership. Just a comment and follow up. I came from a generation where we felt obligated to have to take 2 licensing exams, and it's very promising to hear that things are changing. So thank you.
Well, and again, I'm going to go out and make a guess that you probably went to school in California, because there are big, based on the 1962 situation and what was going on up through the 70s when it wasn't, it was against the law, right, to license a DO for a period of time. That culture was, and there wasn't a lot of GME in California, so that was a common thing, especially when we only had one DO school there. was very common for Western grads at much higher rates, whereas we have other schools on the East Coast, for example, where only 10% of their DO students were electing to take any other exam other than, of course, their COMLEX. So there are regional, geographic, and other related issues that we're certainly sensitive to, and we're trying to double down in California in particular with a few of the pockets of where there's opportunities for education, a few of the institutions that are still not quite there yet. And working together with you and with the schools there and the AOA, I'm confident we're going to continue to open people's eyes. And thank you for your comment.
Thank you. Any members of the public present? Any questions regarding this presentation? I see none. Moderator, anybody online, members of the public wishing to comment on this presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. If any member of the public would like to comment on this presentation from the National Board of Osteopathic Medical Examiners, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. I'm returning the floor back to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Dr. Gimple and Mr. Murray, for coming and answering questions and this presentation. We definitely look forward to working with you in the future and hearing more about the clinical skills and how that evolves. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day and stay well and warm, everybody.
Now we'll move on to agenda item number 9, which is discussion and possible action to adopt the proposed 2024 to 2028 Osteopathic Medical Board of California strategic plan. And I'll pass to Executive Director Erica Calderon.
Thank you, Dr. Bahari. The board's current strategic plan just expired this last calendar year. On September 28, 2023, the board held a strategic planning session facilitated by Solids Training Solutions. The draft that you are being presented with today is our first draft following our strategic planning. Through the strategic planning session, the board discussed and developed 5 new objective goal areas: board administration, regulation and legislation, enforcement, licensure, and outreach and communication. Hopefully, all of the board members had an opportunity to review the plan. The recommended action for today is that the board members adopt the strategic plan draft as is or as amended and direct staff to initiate the steps to finalize the document for publication. So if we can just go through it, I think we can go through each page, and if you can identify if there are any suggestion edits, please do so. And then once we adopt the strategic plan, the final version will be sent to DCA's Office of Publications, Design and Editing, where it will be put into publishing form. Again, the action that is being requested is to adopt the Osteopathic Medical Board's 2024-2028 strategic plan as is or as amended. So if we can go through this really quick, are there any changes to the cover sheet that you would like to see? Any changes to page 2, which is our table of contents? Any changes to page 3, which is a list of our board members? Any changes to page 4, which is the history of the Osteopathic Medical Board? Dr. Bahari, any changes to page number 5, which is a message from Board President?
No.
Thank you. Page number 6, which is our board's mission, vision, and values. Page number 7, goal area number 1, which is board administration. Page number 8, which is goal area number 2, regulation and legislation. Page number 9, goal area number 3, enforcement. Page number 10, goal area number 4, licensure. Page 11, goal area number 5, outreach and communication. Page 12, which is the strategic planning process. I think that concludes the back page. Any changes to that? Perfect. Machiko, if we can have a roll.
Please comment.
Which comments first? To adopt.
Motion first,
Oh.
and then second, then.
Sorry, if we can have a motion, please.
We have a motion to adopt the strategic plan.
Motion to adopt.
I'll second.
That's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion from board members? No? Any members of the public who are present wish to comment? Seeing none. Moderator, anybody from the public online wish to comment on the adoption, on the motion on the table to adopt the strategic plan as is?
Mr. Board President, if any member of the public would like to comment on the voting on this new strategic plan, please raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. I do see a raised hand from Kimberly Turbin. Kimberly, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can I speak on agenda number 9 or not yet?
Yes, that's what we're taking comment for, is agenda item number 9.
Oh, okay, thank you. Well, my name is Kimberly Turbin. I'm from Los Angeles, and I'm also a volunteer with Consumer Watchdog. And I had some goals in mind, and goal 1 would be that we agreed this board needs to establish advisory committees. The committee that needs to be established is the enforcement committee. We need more specific presentations on the enforcement process and a committee where we can break down these issues and or fix them. In order to maximize the Breathe Easy functionality, you need to adopt the medical board consumer complaint notification system that they are working on implementing. This will give consumers direct notification of where their complaint is in the process and a method of communicating with board staff. Also, if you are going to train your staff on how to provide better customer service, you need to train them on how to communicate with the public. Why do you keep leaving the public out of every recommendation? Your mission is to protect the public by requiring competency, accountability, and integrity in the safe practice of medicine. You need to put this message into practice, this mission. Goal number 2 is you need to adopt the legislation that the medical board has adopted. Your legislative staff asked for your input on the SB 815 public rights measures that the medical board supported, but this board stated that they would wait and see. This is not meeting your mission to protect the public. You need to work on taking action for a required interview for families whose complaints you close, and the rights for families to submit a patient impact statement to the board. I think you guys could do a lot better, and I think you need to do better. Thank you.
All right, the next request for comment is from Maria Ibarra Navarrete. And Maria, you should be able to unmute yourself.
I am Maria Ibarra Navarrete. I am from San Jose. I am a volunteer with Consumers Watchdog. This board is not meeting its mission to protect the public, and the values of accountability, collaboration, and consumer protection are non-existent. I agree this board does need advisory committees, but your first committee that should be established is an enforcement committee. The first action of the enforcement committee should be to ensure that this board is following its complaint prioritization guidelines and referring all death complaints to investigation. You don't need to explore methods to improve breezy functionality. You just need to implement the medical board's consumer complaint notification system that they are working on to implement. They are already doing all the work for you. It's simple. Use the same notification system that they are going to use to improve communication between your staff and the public. If you are going to require customer service training of your staff, you cannot leave out training to improve interactions with the public. We are your stakeholders. You are not only licensing physicians, you are here to protect the public. You need to take actions to show the public and the legislator that you are attempting to protect us. Your first goal for enforcement is to follow the law. Create your enforcement committee to ensure your staff is forwarding death complaints to investigation. Reopen some of these death complaints, including my complaint. You should fully implement SB 815, which would include implementing the required interview with the patient and family before you close a complaint, and implementing the patient impact statement. Fully implementing SB 815 would require that you also implement the patient rights and consumer protection included in this bill. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. I see no further requests for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. So at this point, we can take a roll call vote. We'll go ahead and take a roll call vote on the motion to approve the strategic plan as is. Machiko?
For Damian,
Aye.
Dr. Buhari,
Aye.
Dr. Jensen,
Yes.
Dr. Luzak,
Aye.
Andrew Marino, Dr. Patel,
Aye.
Denise Pines,
Aye.
motion carried.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 10, which is our licensing program update. And we'll have Ms. Machiko Chung, our licensing program manager.
Good morning. I will be giving an overview on the licensing program, both recapping last year and current stats. So for 2023, as we close the 2023 calendar year and conclude the second quarter of the 2022-23 fiscal year, I want to take a second to applaud my staff, Dina Rupert, Gabriela Gonzalez, and Mia Quinn, for all of their hard work, despite the numerous changes that the unit saw this past year. Over the last 6 months, continued efforts were made to streamline the licensing process and prepare both the program and applicants for transition to the exclusive online submittal of all temporary, postgraduate training, and full unrestricted license applications. And on December 29th, the board removed all paper applications from the website. However, for ADA purposes, these documents will still be made available upon request. Notification of the changes to the application process were posted on the board's website, in addition to going on the OMBC's Facebook and X accounts. So licensing statistics, attachments 10A and 10B, which I will not show because I'm multitasking as the co-host, provide a snapshot of the licensing population and application stats for the first half of the 23-24 fiscal year. Currently, the board has 15,233 licensed osteopathic physicians and surgeons, 982 postgraduate training licensees, and 1,309 fictitious name permits. And I'm pleased to report that the board has seen roughly a 32% increase in the receipt and approval of full unrestricted license applications compared to the LY projections around the same time. Staff are now able to address application deficiencies with minor lag in the review process and expedite the processing of these applications that have met the minimum requirement for issuance with ease. With applications now entering their own applicants now entering their own personal identifiable information, or PII, into the PREES portal, as opposed to staff manually keying each section of the 5-page application into the back office PREES portal, the time saving from the shift in data entry has made a huge impact to the program. Over the next few months, we will be working on making minor revisions to the PTO application to ensure that the impending PTO applicants applying for the 24-25 fiscal year may do so with minimal issues. And let me pull up the stats so you can see. Our application stats from last year through current year. Concludes my report.
Bring those up a little bit, Machiko. Are you able to?
I don't. Caesar might be able to.
Okay.
Make the screen larger for the.
Or bring up the stats a little bit higher so that we can see the numbers. There we go. I think we can open it up for comments.
Any comment from members of the board regarding the licensure? No? Any members of the public wish to comment on the licensing program update? Seeing no members of the public present wanting to comment. Moderator, any members of the public online wish to comment on the licensing program update?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on the licensing program summary, they can type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen or simply raise their hand. We'll give them a moment. All right, this is a moderator. I see no request for comment. I return the floor back to you, Mr. Board President.
Thank you. And thank you. Our newly enshrined permanent position, right?
Yes, congratulations to Machiko. One of the things that I do want to point out, if we can go back to the stats really quick, staff has been working very hard. As you can see, just in the Q1, you can notice that they are licensing more than what we are receiving. And I wanted to make sure that that was pointed out in the highlighted areas here that you can see under the purple highlighted areas. A lot of this has to do with them catching up with some backlog and the transition into going live. I believe, Machiko, you don't have any other applications to have to tackle anymore. We're fully transitioned, right?
We transitioned.
Yeah.
Yes.
So congratulations to that unit. I think they're doing a stellar job, and hopefully we can start seeing them slow down a little bit. But in terms of their performance, they are licensing more than what we are receiving right now, which is amazing.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 11, which is our Administrative Services Program. Ms. Terry Thorfinson, our Administrative Services Program Manager. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to just present this report as it's very short, as putting numbers to, you often wonder, how are we doing? Puts numbers to what we're doing in the Administrative Services Unit, which is renewals and fictitious name permits. You can see, just kind of looking at both quarters, that there's a variation in the numbers. With renewals, there were fewer in the first quarter, but more in the second quarter. And fictitious names, fewer in the first quarter and a lot more in the second quarter, because our renewal date is traditionally in December of each calendar year. So we don't have very much renewals, but we do have some throughout the year. So that kind of sets the stage, variation in renewals from quarter to quarter, and renewals predominantly for fictitious names are done in the second quarter. And you can see we have improvement in terms of processing times. You wonder, so how long does it take? Well, there is variation. Oddly enough, I think kudos to the renewal staff. They brought down, despite the fact that they had more renewals to process, they brought down their processing time from the first quarter to the second quarter from 27 to 23. And our fictitious name permits, we had a backlog, and over the past year, we have eliminated that backlog. So this is in real time, and you can see that the performance measures for processing are very low, and exactly where we want to be. Questions?
Any questions from our board members? No, any question from members of the public or comments from members of the public who are present? Seeing none. Moderator, any members of the public online wish to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 11, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no request for comment. I return the floor back to you, Mr. Board President.
Thank you. And with that, we will take our break for lunch, and we have a busy set of items when we come back. So let's take about 45 minutes. It's 11:50 now, so about 12:35, 12:40. Thank you.